Hey guys, welcome to Coding After 30. So we're finally live again on this Tuesday project party time night. Anyway, I just want to start making videos about building stuff, and hopefully, it's something that will help you to kind of see how I do it and to see that you'll never have a perfect start. So you just have to start somewhere. And so let me know if you could hear my audio. Let me know if I'm not too loud, if the music's not too loud. And we'll jump in and start talking about the topic at hand. But before we do that, let's have some of you guys jump on and, say hello. We have Endpoint here. Yo, what's up, brother? Good to see you. We had Josh earlier say hello. But anyway, today we're going to talk about where to get started with your project. And we kind of, in our first episode, we talked about the big picture of what we want to do and the whole idea behind building a complex application. And I talked to one of my friends who is a senior developer, and we kind of came to a consensus that having something like a blog, especially if it's something just displays information and doesn't have any backend feature where you could add your article, edit your article, delete your article, it's not enough for your portfolio to be able to get, hired. It's there's a lot more to it than just dumping data on the screen. You have to be able to show some relationship between the data, showcase some logic and stuff like that. And that's kind of like the whole idea of having this Tuesday night, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. US Central Time, having this kind of stream where we kind of think about what should we build together in a project, because the idea is that you do want to make a complex project. And a lot of you guys who are trying to get a job, maybe you guys are able to get a job, and man, that's awesome, great for you. And some of you guys who are struggling, maybe it's because your portfolio is just not strong enough, or it could be your skill or combination of both. And I know this firsthand because for the longest time I was not able to get any employment because due to the lack of my knowledge. And so we talked about the first stream, kind of the big picture of where to get started. And the second stream was kind of like out there because we were not organized, but we kind of quickly thought about different ideas of what kind of projects to build. And we decided that we're all going to build a project management tool for developers to be able to showcase their portfolio, to be able to manage their projects that they're working on. And we kind of only got that far, and we went over like this basic tools we're going to use to build that project, where we talked about React, GraphQL, using Strapi as our backend. And what we were able to do, we were able to set up a very simple proof of concept where we have our front end running, we have our back end running, and we were able to communicate with the data, meaning we were able to get our data from the back end to the front end. And I'm going to briefly show you kind of what we have so far, and it's nothing special. I'll start with the live view so you guys could be like super unimpressed, and then I'll jump into the comments and talk about that a little bit more. But as you can see here, let me switch to my other screen. All right, guys, so as you can see, this is basically our app. All it does is just pulls data from our backend. So this is the data in our backend. We have this concept of projects and users, and we use Strapi to set up the backend, and we're pulling the data to our front end here. And if I show you the application here, as you could see, and don't worry if you lost, ask questions. We're gonna keep talking about it, and I'm gonna, you could always rewatch the streams. The whole point of this is to not learn everything while you're watching the stream, but to have the stream to be able to come back to, ask questions about it, and little by little read the docs on your own and make progress. But this is just to give you an overview of what we're building. I also decided that I realized that you guys can't see my screen yet. It should be entire screen here. Perfect. And here's the code. And again, don't worry if you guys don't understand here. We're using GraphQL 2 videos ago. Man, where did my screen go? This is so weird. I can't believe you guys can't see it. Let me fix that because I really want to show you the code that we're looking on. And I guess the best way to do it, entire screen, primary display. That's not the primary display. Secondary display. That's what I want. There you go. I'll want to be able to show you the code. Here we go. We could see the code now. And so we're running this live. A couple of streams ago, we set up our two applications here. We have the server, which is basically our Strappy application, and then we set up our client, which is our React application, and we set it up with GraphQL and Apollo. And if you're not sure what that is, don't worry about it. We're going to work through it, and you guys are going to see so much of this code and ask questions in the comment. I'll explain the code that you guys will eventually pick stuff up. But we basically set up basic Apollo client using the docs, and we imported it into our project in index.js. Actually, we went and imported it in our app application. See, we have this Apollo provider. We passed our client into it. And again, if you're not sure, don't worry about it. We'll go through it. But basically, we're using our GraphQL query. We're using useQuery hook to get this data, and then we are displaying this data on the screen. So if you're gonna kind of like, if what you have to know up to this point is that we basically have a starting point where we have a front end and a back end working together. And as you could see, we have three projects, and we're able to pull that data from our back end to our front end. And that's basically kind of like the idea of what you have to know so far. And like what I'm going to say to you guys, don't worry if you're like, oh man, am I starting in the middle? I'm starting the, like the point is to talk about development and general kind of concepts and talk about what we're working on without you being too bogged down on the code, but with you guys kind of seeing the overall picture. And so today's live stream, I really want to talk about like this idea of, before you start your project, and we started with coding first because I kind of wanted to jump in and set up the bare minimum. But the most important part is actually having a plan of action and where do you start. So I'm obviously no expert. I'm not an architect. I am a developer who's been doing development for about 2 years. And so like I only have the knowledge based on my experience. And in a lot of the companies, you're working on the team where they have other people that already started the process that we're going to talk about it. But today we're going to kind of talk about this idea. What do you do before writing any code? And basically having a simple mock-up. It doesn't have to be like finished, UX UI design. Talk about the data structures we're going to use for a project, for our database, and kind of how these pieces are going to fit together. And then we're going to come up with this idea of what is our minimum viable product that we want to build to say, okay, for our version 1, what is the scope of the project? So that's what we're going to talk about it. So guys, say hello in the comments and smash the like button as always. And let me say hello. We have Jordan Lee. Much respect to you, my guy. I also have no degree. Is coding bootcamp worth it? Money for this is not issue for me. It really depends. If you've been studying on your own, going to a bootcamp will help you. But if you haven't started studying on your own, I would give yourself 2 to 3 months, study on your own, and then bootcamp may help. But it's up to you. But what I hear, people that go from not knowing anything to bootcamp don't succeed. Usually the type of people that do well in boot camps are the people that have prior knowledge and prior experience. And he's saying the boot camp is mainly front end, no back end. Would you recommend this to get into the industry? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know which boot camp you're talking about in particular, but if it's using something like a popular framework like React and you're covering the basics, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the biggest thing I would do your research, and maybe like if you want, you could send me the name of the bootcamp you're thinking of going, and I could take a look at it. Also, give you my feedback. And we have Big B420 saying hello, welcome, always great to have you. Brian is here taking a break from learning. Say hello. Yeah, most important part is to continue learning. And hello, Brian. And Rob is here. Yo, my man is back live. Can't wait to hear what on the show tonight. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. I say that about every show, even this probably if it's terrible. But the point is, like, we've been kind of starting working on a project, and our stream 1, we talked about big overview. Stream 2, we kind of came up with this idea of what we want to build. This idea for project management for developers where they could share their portfolio. Others could comment and like or upvote. And then eventually, we wanted to add other features like have recruiters be able to see your portfolio, connect with you. You have the ability to track your projects and collaborate with people. But that's like a huge scope. So today's kind of like stream, we're going to talk about what is the basic minimum that we have to build. So quick review, we decided that we're going to use React for the front end. We're going to use Strapi for a back end. By the way, if you never use Strapi, Strapi is amazing because it allows you to set up a API super fast, super quick. And let me go to share my screen here in a second, show you Strapi website. Actually, you don't need to see Strapi website at the moment. You'll see it throughout the stream, but Strapi is amazing. I'm afraid if I click too many buttons, I'll break something. It's amazing because it allows you to set up a backend fairly quickly. And what's awesome, it's built in Node.js. And so if you already know JavaScript, but you don't want to jump into full stack right away, using Strapi, where a lot of it you could do out of the box. And then if you do want to add some additional kind of things to it, you could easily do it. And actually, let me share my screen and show you. So this is Strapi here. Let me make the screen bigger. So showing you the wrong screen. Where did it go? See, I don't know how to use my computer. It's Google Chrome. So this is Strapi, and what Strapi allows us to create, you know, different data types. Like we have projects, users. It does all the database in the back, like hidden from us. Right now we're using SQLite, but we will transition this project into PostgreSQL, something that is very typical, that is used in real job situations. Like early at our work, we use PostgreSQL, so we could do this with PostgreSQL. So now we have a backend, and I'll talk more about this. Don't worry if again you're jumping in. Like for these type of streams, the way they're going to be is more like general conversation, so you never feel like you're jumping in late. And what I'm going to do, I'm also going to make more dedicated blog post entries, which I'll share on my blog, of the steps of where we are. So if you missed the stream, you know, you could, and you don't want to watch all like an hour and a half of it, which you could always watch on 2-speed, I'll make like little tutorials in the blog where it's just the steps that we took to set up the environment that we did. And so, but Strapi is amazing. And what's cool with Strapi is that it supports GraphQL, and that's what we're using for our way to query our data. So we could use basically something like REST API. REST API, what's interesting, like, or not interesting, is that if you have data in your database or a column, let me go back here, like you have projects, you have users, those are going to be separate API requests, where with GraphQL, instead of having projects, users, you literally have one endpoint, and it's very easy to test your API because GraphQL comes with what they call GraphQL background, graphical. You just type GraphQL. And so here we are, and we're right away able to test our queries. So if I want to get projects with the name of the project, description of the project, and the developer who wrote it, I just make a query, I press play, and I get it. And this query models the data that we return. Notice how we literally get what we ask for. So we ask for project ID, name, description, and all that other stuff. Notice how it's one-to-one relationship. So it's very easy to get the data that you want very easily. And if you go and switch to look at the code here, let me switch here. One moment. Switch to entire screen here. So as I switch to my code here, basically notice the query, we ask exactly for what we want, and we call our query here using useQuery. And again, my screen disappeared again. What happened? What happened? What happened? Code. So here we go. Here we go. So we have our query, same thing as we saw in the playground. We use query hook. We pass our query into it. We get our data, and we basically map over our data to get our projects, to see our projects. Again, don't worry if you guys not sure exactly. We're going to do so much of going over this stuff and repeating stuff that you guys going to be able to easily, I'm in secondary display, easily be able to kind of eventually figure stuff out. And again, I just want to talk big overview, and most importantly, just ask questions so I could answer these questions. And as you could see, we're getting exactly what we asked for. We got our projects. Our projects have our description, the name of the developer, who that project belongs to. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to build on where we started. So before I move on, I'm going to kind of And I know why my screen is ridiculous right now. Hold on a second. Is this Chrome? No, Firefox. Okay, perfect. So anyway, let me look at the comments here. So earlier question, much love to you. Bootcamp is called Juno College Web Development Bootcamp in Canada. Not sure if you heard of it. Since I'm not from Canada, probably I haven't heard of it, but I will, look into it. But what I would say is, you don't rush the decision and getting a bootcamp. Like boot camps, like they go, they could be good, they could be bad. So you got to make sure you do your due diligence to pick the one that is reputable and has good reviews. And also, before going to a boot camp, you want to do some studying up front to get some experience that when you go to boot camp, you're not going to feel like you're being lost. And that's like, if I were to recommend the boot camp, I would say do at least 2 to 3 months of studying on your own, because number one, it'll give you an idea if this is something you want to do to begin with before dumping a bunch of money into a boot camp. And also, when you do go to a boot camp, you'll be prepared. And a lot of boot camps, they don't tell you this, but they actually, at least the ones that don't want to take your money, just take your money, I guess I should say, they want to make sure that they're getting candidates that have some coding experience, because in 3 months, you'll be moving through stuff fairly quickly. And so it's important for us to basically make sure that, you're not getting lost. But anyway, with that being said, like, what we're going to do here is we're going to, let me share my screen here. Switch to screen share. We're going to talk about kind of our project and kind of how do you start, how do you plan a project, like what do you how do you know, gotta switch to Google Chrome here, like how do you know you're doing the right thing, you know what I mean? How do you know like where to start? And so usually what happens is we all start our project, and tell me, let's have a chat here. Usually when people start a project, they just start with coding, and that's the wrong way of doing it. But guess what? Everybody does it. They just start building. And the reason why it's bad is because you didn't really think through what you want to build. You haven't, you don't know what you want to build. You haven't planned it out. You don't have a simple mock-up, and you don't have a simple idea of how the flow of data is going to happen. So what I would say is, when you're looking to build a project, number one, start with the smallest scope possible to get a proof of concept. You don't have to build all the features at once, but once you kind of understand what that is, like, define that scope, define the data that you need to do. And obviously, if you're going to go through all that today, and it's not going to be like the professional setup of how to do that, but it'll be definitely enough for you to get an idea. So we decided that for our project, we're building a project management application for developers to be able to share their projects with others, have other users be able to upvote them or like them, and have the ability to comment on projects. So you don't need to master everything. So what you need to do is you need to have proof of concept, like this. Like if you were to make a basic version of this app to get started, what would it look like? And so that's kind of something that we would discuss, talk about, and plan. So I'm going to show you, share my screen, and we'll go from there. So again, guys, we know that we want to build an application for users to be able to manage their project. So we know we need a project, or I called it portfolio object, as you could see here on the screen. So we have a portfolio object. We know that we have users. So I created users. We also know that we're going to have likes. So we create a data structure for likes. And we're also going to have comments. So we're going to create a data structure for comments. So the relationship that's going to maintain our comments, for instance, we'll be able to see in the user object all the things that they liked, but we're also going to be able to see in the portfolio data object all the likes for that particular portfolio. So we know that for our initial thing, what we want to do, we want to basically create a simple view where we have a card of our initial portfolio, which will have the image of the portfolio. Again, we're doing the bare minimum. It's going to have a title for the portfolio. It's going to have the description for the portfolio. It's going to have the like count. It's going to have the avatar picture with your name on it, like the developer who created it. And then if you click like, you will not be able to like unless you're logged in. So we need to have a login screen where people sign in. They'll be redirected back. And then once they're signed in, they're able to like or unlike comments, right? We also will have this detail button. When people go to the detail button, it's going to show more detailed view of the project. Again, this is a mock-up. It's not exactly how it's going to look, but it's just to kind of give you an idea within the data that we need, how we're going to structure our UI. So when they hit the detail page, they're going to have the description of your portfolio. Maybe we'll add some images and your case studies. We're going to have a GitHub link to that portfolio. You guys are going to have your LinkedIn link. You're going to have a live link to where that portfolio project is deployed so people could see it. And we're going to have a link to a resume. And here we're going to have your avatar image, super simple. And then here we're going to have stream of comments. And then here people will be able to add a comment and comment on your portfolio, give you feedback. And again, we're not trying to make this complex because the whole point here is to create minimum viable product which captures the functionality we want. And so we have these three basic screens. And we know that we're going to have this idea of, in a database of likes, users, portfolios, and comments. And I didn't add likes here, but I should have. And our basic steps are going to be, okay, let's display our portfolio to our front page. Let's display our user avatars. Let's create an add upload button. Then we're going to want to introduce React Router because we're going to have this idea of routing, because our login page is going to be its own place, our detail page is going to be its own thing, and our home page is going to be its own thing. Once we get the routing done, we'll build those basic pages. We're going to build out the create logout. What am I doing? We're going to build out create logout login page. We're going to talk about how to authenticate user with GraphQL. Once we have the user authenticated, we're going to talk about how to store that token in local storage so we could have access to it, and the idea of the logged in user so we know the user is logged in. And once someone is logged in, they'll be able to redirect to, if the user is not logged in or not allowed to upload, they'll automatically be redirected to log in. We're going to get the functionality for the like to work first, and then after our likes work, we'll work on creating a comment form, submitting a comment, and only allowing authenticated users to comment. So this is the basics. Again, it's not much, but we have our objects in the database defined. We have our basic idea, logic, and again, this is not perfect, but at least now when we start coding, we have some direction. And that is the main thing that I want to say, is that if you don't plan out what you're going to build and you're just building as you're coding, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and it's going to be very difficult. So let me know, guys, what you guys thinking so far. If you guys have any questions or anything that you want me to clarify. And again, the point of these live streams is for me to basically work on the project with you live on it and answer your questions. And granted, if you guys get lost, you could always ask questions. That's why I'm here, to answer questions. More importantly, you could always rewatch the old streams. And then even more importantly, I am going to make condensed versions of blogs where I'm going to actually show you the steps that you take, like a tutorial where you could do these steps on your own and catch up with the project without having to watch the stream. So there's going to be many different ways for you guys to consume it. And Hamza Code says hello. Hey, Paul. And today was my second day on the job. They use PHP and code bases so much. I don't want so much. I don't know what's going on. Everything is in PHP. Any tips? They hire me as a front-end developer, but everything is in PHP. So what I would say, yeah, a kind of similar thing happened to me when I got started at my first job, is that they hired me for React and front end, but their backend was, which was in C#. And I'm assuming these guys have their backend is in PHP. So basically what I had to do, I had to study up some C# to kind of understand enough about C# to be able to know how they're passing data. So I was able to use that data on the front end. So what I would say is just start reading up on PHP and kind of how the PHP API works in terms of passing that data to the front end. And by the way, when you have a job, especially if you're starting as a junior developer, you don't be shy and ask questions of other developers to help you kind of get caught up. But at the beginning of every job, they do have a period where they try to first have you acclimate to the code. They give you some simple bugs to work on, and they try to slowly ease you in. And I like this question a lot. And I wonder if you're asking me or Hamza, well, what is your ultimate career goal in this field? My career goal is to just continue to become the best React developer that I can be, so I could continue to improve my knowledge as a developer. And then eventually I want to do more teaching and help people switch careers who happen to be in my situation, who are stuck, or they've been trying but nothing's been working. And the reason why a lot of things not work is because at the end of the day, this is really hard to do. And there's a lot of stuff you have to learn. And there's not a lot of people that kind of talk about the difficulty of it and talk about the level of a portfolio you have to have where people treat you seriously and want to hire you. So my first goal is to be the best developer that I can be. Again, I'm still on my starting journey, and you'll see me make a lot of mistakes, especially on this live stream where we're just discovering things together. But then eventually I want to be able to continue growing this channel where I'm able to give actual steps that you guys could take to get hired without BS of like drone footage or talking about how cool, being a developer is and check out my fancy car. Because me talking about how cool being as a developer doesn't help you get hired. You know what I mean? It doesn't help you. So Hamza, I'm the only front-end developer in the office. So if you are, basically, you need to ask the back-end developers how they're passing data to the front end. How are you going to consume it? What endpoints do you have to hit? Is it like and I'm assuming it's going to be REST API. And then basically you have to look up how to use either fetch or using Axios library to be able to make a get or post request or update request, whatever, to the backend, so you could use that data in the front end. And some of this we're going to look at in this application that we're building. The difference is we're not doing REST API, we're using GraphQL. But basically, like I'll show an example with our application. Let me share my screen here, just so you can kind of see. I have too many screens open. What the hell? And I closed the wrong screen. Of course I would close the wrong screen. So basically, the backend should provide API endpoints for you. And what the hell? Where's the button to goddamn screen? Switch to share. I want to share. So that's the code. That's not the screen I want to show you. We want to switch to Firefox. I have too many browsers open. So like in our application, we have something called projects. So you will get something like this where you will have a project's endpoint, and in JavaScript you could use fetch, or a lot of people use Axios, and you're basically going to be able to hit an API and it will give you back data in JSON format like you see it here, where we get our project name, the description, our developers, the publish at, and you're going to be using this data on the front end to populate the front end and to make it work. So that's it in a nutshell. So what I would do, since you know that they're using PHP and Symfony, that's kind of how development is. Like, start reading and watching tutorials on PHP and Symfony to bring yourself up to date as quick as possible. And you know what? Is it fun? No. Is it hard? Yes. But when I started my first job and I had to learn C#, that's kind of like what I had to do. I literally had to learn C#, and I had to do tutorials with C# to help me get get familiarized with stuff, and in order to be able to make progress. And that's the hardest thing to do. So, all right, guys. So let's kind of do a little bit of work here. So basically, we're using our Strappy to create our backend, and that's what we're going to be using to manage, our backend API. And the cool thing about Strappy is that if you want to add additional functionality, you're able to write, you know, custom controller code and make it happen. So let's kind of jump back here and review our unprofessional mockup here to kind of get an idea of what we want to do here. So let me switch screens again. I suck at switching screens. I don't know what's happening. I moved my button to switch screens, so now it's kind of like crazy and doesn't let me switch screens. So that's something else. That's my different project we're working on. That's not for this stream. So let me go to primary display. No, secondary display. Yep, secondary display. So here we go. So generally, basically, we talked about we want to build a minimum viable product. It's going to be a portfolio management thing, and we're making the most like smallest scope possible. We basically want to have this concept of users who could be developers. So we're going to have an object in our database called user. We're also going to have a portfolio, which is your portfolio that you make. It's going to have very simple fields like author, title, description, GitHub URL, live URL, and likes that it has, and like count. And then eventually we'll add comments. We're going to have this concept of likes, this concept of comments, so we know what our data is. And then based on the data that we're using, we have a very simple mockup. So our homepage literally is going to look nothing special. It's going to be it's funny, Dev Mentor, I don't use OBS because if I used OBS, I wouldn't even be able to get this far. OBS sucks because it's like building a rocket ship before every stream. I got sick and tired of it. I actually use Ecamm Live. It's amazing. But yeah, so from the standpoint of our application, this is going to be our first page, which basically allows people to view portfolios. So portfolio will have a simple image of the portfolio. UI, it'll have little heading, the name of the portfolio, it'll have basic description, it'll have your avatar image with your name, it'll have likes. If you click the like button, it'll check, are you an authorized user? And if you're not, it's going to kick you to the login screen where you would have to log in. And once you're logged in and authenticated, you're going to be able to like the posts. You'll also be able to click on the details post, which will take you to a more detailed view. And again, this is a mock-up. This is not the final design, but I just want you guys to have an idea of what you want to build, think through the logic that you need to make this stuff happen, plan it out ahead of time, and create your application with the functionality first, and then you could use CSS to change the UI to your heart's yeah, Ecamm, that's right, because I have, my daytime job where I talk about coding, and then I have my OnlyFans account. That's how I make the big bucks. So, I use the same software for both my businesses, if you're wondering. And so, basically, on our detail page, we're going to have detailed information. We're going to have our links to our LinkedIn, the GitHub for this particular portfolio, live link for the live version of this portfolio so people could see it, how it works. We're going to have our resume, and we're going to have a simple comment section here where people could add comments and comment on your portfolio. And so that's our minimum viable project. We want to be able to display the portfolio, display our user avatars in the portfolio image. We want to have an upload button. If you click it, if you're authorized, it's going to allow you to like. We're going to have we're going to have to do React routing because we do have 3 pages. We have our home page, we have our login page, and we have our detail page. We're going to talk about this idea of private routes. For instance, to get to the detail page, you're going to be logged in. So again, we're not building a crazy application to start with, but we are getting majority of this functionality that we need to get it running. And so that is amazing. So with that being said, the first thing we're going to do is build out our data. What's awesome, because we're using Strappy, it's very easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Strappy. So this is the beauty. Here we go. Let me share that. Firefox, here we go. So when you have Strappy, that's what we're running on our backend. It's amazing. I can't say enough. You go to open at our administration panel. It's going to ask for your details. So I'm going to log in. And I type slow when I think, because I can't think and type at the same time. Let's see if I remember my own password. No, don't save my password. It's because it's invalid. Because I can't type or I forget my password, which is often happens. Log in, it's invalid. Oh, it's a different password. See, and this is like, I have a lot of love for people that do coding live, because it's not easy, and you definitely have to know what you're doing. Like, do I know what I'm doing? No. But that's why I'm making these streams, is to give you guys, you know, how things actually are in real life when you're starting out, you're building a project, all the struggle and suffering that goes with it. You know what I'm saying? And you know what's hilarious? A lot of people are not going to watch these streams, which is fine to me, but it's hilarious because this is the stuff you should be doing. And the reason I'm making these live streams is for the standpoint of, God damn it, if you're not doing this on your own, you're not going to get hired. You might as well give up now, because you need to code, you need to put yourself out there, and you need to build more complex projects. So talked about our data structure. So we're going to go to our content types here, and we already let's switch to Google Chrome. We know that we need to have users and portfolio. So we have users and portfolio. So let's see that and make sure that we have all this required data, all this we have, you know, our users, our portfolio. Let's make sure that we have the required data that we need. So I'm going to kind of switch it back and look at this. So Firefox, here we are. So let's see, we have our name, we have our description, we have our developer in our project field. What else do we need? We need to have a GitHub URL, live URL, place for our likes count, and then comments we'll do later. So let's go ahead, add another field. So we're going to add another field, and we're going to add text. We're going to call this, gee, you know, I'm so bad at naming things. It's going to be GitHub URL. So let's call it GitHub URL. That's going to be our field. It's just going to be a string, nothing complex. So that's another field. We're going to add another field. It's going to be our, let's see, live site URL. So let's call it live site URL. Very original, very amazing. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to add another field. We're going to have like count. So this project, when you guys like it, we want to be able to track the likes. There's a couple of ways of doing it. We're going to use a combination of two, because we're going to have a int value for the likes. And so we're going to create a number. We're going to call it likes count. And then we're also going to have a likes relationship object. And we're going to just start with an integer for now, and finish and save. So now we created our basic data structure for our projects. I call them portfolio in my notes here. So we have name, description, development. What's cool about Strap is that you could, while you're building your application, you could populate all that stuff here. So let me go here. Notice how we already have our application running. Let me just show it to you guys in this screen here. And we're already pulling our data. So what we're going to do, we're just going to display the rest of the data that we're getting. So let me inspect here. Console log. Notice we have an array of projects, and it has a description. It has the developer that it belongs to. All the other data we don't have yet, because we need to go ahead and add it. So I'm going to go here. And for now, like, I'm just going to add some dummy code here for now, just so you know we have something. YouTube www. I don't know, Facebook. Nobody likes Facebook, but we're gonna put it here. And then like count is you're gonna set it to 0, and obviously you could come back here and say like, look, I have 1,000 likes. Eventually we're gonna go to the backend code and we're gonna make sure that you can't change this here, and whenever you start or create a new project, it's always gonna start with 0 likes, and all the like logic is gonna be on the backend. But for now, this is what we're going to do. And what I'm gonna do is go back to my projects and add some of that dummy data here. Let's say this person has 10 likes, www.youtube. And again, we're not like worried about making things pretty. We're not worried about, you know, making things production ready at all. We just want to make sure that the things that we need in terms of functionality for our MVC is gonna work for us. You know what I'm saying? Because if things don't work, this guy is super amazing, has 100 likes, then, you know, there's no point of making something look pretty, because unless you're looking to be a web designer or UX UI designer, which is a totally different field, and not a web developer, you need to work about getting stuff to work and writing the logic that makes things happen. And that's why we're doing this together. And I'll do Facebook, you know, and that's why, like, I'm doing this live stream. And, you know, guys, if you don't like it, I don't really care. Like, the thing about this live stream, it's not a prepared live stream. Like, I'm literally thinking through this with you guys. And so the whole point of the stream is for you guys to get the understanding is that if you're not building stuff from scratch, you'll never get a job. Like, you'll never get a job, right? If you're but at the same time, like, a lot of times when you start to build something from scratch, because you watch tutorials and you think that people just make that stuff work right from the get-go, maybe someone who's a really good developer and they built so many different versions of the thing, yeah, they could code stuff live very well. But when you're starting out, it's not that easy. There is that planning phase, there is that organization phase, then you're finally starting to code and do all this other stuff. And so I want you guys to kind of see how I do things live and to understand that, you know, it's work, it's struggle, and it's not as people make it out to be, where you just type and stuff works. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that, guys, because I could prepare and build this application and then come on live and just, like, in steps show you the stuff that I built and copy and paste the stuff that I built and be like, look, everything works magically. But that's not the reality when you code on your own. And so this is raw, uncut, and for some people this is going to be boring. Who cares, you know? But this is what you guys have to do. If you want to get a job, you need to build more complex projects and you need to incorporate a lot of moving parts, because you don't want to build a portfolio. Like, this is, let's say, a job that you want, and the hiring manager has an idea of a portfolio, and this is where that is. And you don't want to have stuff on your resume that's subpar, that's not up to the par of getting hired. And so honestly, like, when you're building a portfolio to get hired, it needs to have different relationships. It does need to have like logic that you know, incorporate in your application, where if you change one thing in one part of application, other parts of your application get updated. That's what you're going to be paid to create. So if you're not building stuff from scratch and not thinking through it like we're doing here, like, then it's going to be very difficult. So if you're just joining us, what we're doing is we talked about this basic concept that before you start writing any code, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you plan first. And so I went ahead and created this basic kind of mock-up, and I did a super easy one to kind of like make sure that, look, you guys don't have to be professionals. Like, this is going to be our homepage, just bunch of portfolio projects. If you hit the detail button or like button and you're not authenticated, you're going to be kicked to the login page, right? You could see the brief description, but if you want the details or the ability to like or comment, you have to sign in as an authenticated user. Once you sign in, you'll be able to click the like button to make it work. You'll be able to click on the details button, and it will take you to the details page where you're going to have more information, different links to the LinkedIn, to the GitHub of the project, to LinkedIn, to the live version of the site, and to your link to your resume, which you still have to add the link to your resume, which we'll do later. You'll have a basic comment section where people will be able to add a comment and submit a comment. And so we created that layout based on the data things that we need. We know we have users because users have portfolios or projects. We have our portfolio, which is our projects. that the user has, we have our likes, and we have our comments. And those are the 4 data structures in our database that we're going to use to make this happen. Then we kind of wrote what we want to do. We want to be able to display the portfolio. We want to make sure that we're also able to display the avatar images. We want to add an upvote button. If the person is not authorized, when they click upvote, they get redirected. They have to sign in. And so we just talked about the simple steps. So we're not trying to build this huge projects with many features. We just want to build the most basic thing with the most basic items that we need, which is our ability for a user to be able to log in and be able to either comment on the portfolios or like the portfolios. And for now, we're not going to even have a feature to be able to add this from the front end of our application. That's all going to come in the future. For now, we're just going to rely on using Strapi. So what I just did is I worked on making sure that our portfolio has all the data things that we need. So let me go back to my to my other screen here. Yep. And so here we are. So we are using Strapi to create a super simple API for us. So we created our project. We have our users. Now, any additional data we need for the users. So the users, let's check. Let's jump into Luke. Our users should have relationship to a project. So we see here that this user, Luke, belongs to Luke's project. That's a relationship. And if you're getting lost, listen, guys, I'm doing this live so you could ask questions in the live stream, and I'm going to answer these questions for you for sure, guys. That's why I'm doing this. And all right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to be like, okay, this is like, we're not going to build out the UI to look pretty, like, but let's see if we could go ahead and have some concept of a card where we have our heading, which our title, our description, the name of the user. We're not even going to worry about the avatar and the likes that they have. So currently on our backend, we have this concept of projects, and we're using GraphQL. And GraphQL is awesome because it allows you to get the data that you ask for. So this is our application for now, but let me find a tab to open GraphQL for us. Okay, where's our Strapi build? Here we go. So, all right, so this is a way, like, cool thing about GraphQL is that it creates this, and I realize I'm not sharing my goddamn screen. You guys have to yell at me when I don't share my screen. So GraphQL, right, our backend is hosted at localhost 1337, and then if you go /GraphQL, you have this GraphQL Playground, which allows you to test your queries to get the items that we want. So based on our, initial setup, we're going to have our front page, which is going to get our portfolio. So we could get query, and we could name it, you don't have to, get all projects, whatever we want to call it. And then in this query, we're going to get all our projects. And the cool thing about GraphQL is that it is self-documenting. Like, you see how I get auto correction here for items that I need, and if I click docs, because we entered that data in our Strapi API, we automatically get all the information we need. So if I want to query projects, I go under queries to projects, click projects, and it shows all the items that I could ask for. So I could ask for name, description, the developer, and then I could click the developer. It shows all the other acts that I have. What's interesting, if you were doing GraphQL from scratch on the back end, you would have to write all the logic to make these relationships work, which is very time consuming. And what's awesome, GraphQL with Strapi does it automatically. And we have Luke join us. Hey Luke, what's up? Good to see you. So we're slowly making our way through craziness here because none of this is prepared for. And the reason I'm doing it is because I want people to kind of see exactly what would be happening to you guys when you're trying to build something at home, especially when you're not prepared. I did prepare a little bit in terms of talking this idea. When you're starting something, you should have some sort of, session where you think about the stuff you're going to be creating. So I created this basic thing of the objects that we're going to have living in our database, kind of things that we want to build for version 1. I created our basic UI. This is our home page where people are going to be able to like or check out details. You can't view details or like items or like an item unless you log in. So you'll be able to log in. Once you're authenticated, you could either like the items here, or you'll be able to go to the details section and add a comment. That's the basics in the nutshell, kind of what we're talking about. Right now, what we're doing is we want to kind of at least make sure, can we get most of this data in our front end? And that's why we're kind of in our GraphQL, because I'm kind of talking about writing a query to get all the things that we need. So I know we need the title of, did I call it name? We need the name of the project. We need the description of the project. We also have our likes. So we have like count. And if I click play here, it's going to give us a preview. See, we're getting exactly what we asked for. We're getting the project name, description, like count. Now we want to get a developer. And we're going to get first name and last name. And not that we need it, but let's go ahead and get the ID for the developer. Maybe if we need the ID, we have access to it. So when I hit play, notice how we're getting all that information. And what's cool is I was able to test this query in this graphical interface on the back end. Our back end is being run from this endpoint. And now I'm able to go into my code. So let's go to our code editor where we started before, and I'm able to add this query here. You see, like, I'm just going to replace it here, blah, blah, blah. And so now what we're doing is we're created this graph query. We tested it already on our backend Graphql Playground. We know that it works. And then we're using useQuery hook, which is exactly what Apollo client gives you. So you could read the documentation by going to Apollo client, and I'll kind of go show it to you guys quickly. And this is kind of like the back and forth that happens when you're starting out learning to code. You know, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be figuring a lot of things out. You're going to be trying to, like, things. And so if you go to Apollo, whoa, that is weird. I broke my screen. No, I didn't. Here you go. So if you go to apollographql.com, you have the documentation, and it's going to walk you through kind of the first steps that we already took in our starting section. You know, the setup, how to use npm install to get GraphQL set up, how to import all the necessary stuff. We actually set this up already in our application. All this code, it's living in our index.js file in the Apollo folder, and it shows you how to connect everything together so you have access to all the use hooks that come with Apollo. And as you can see, the first hook that we're using is the useQuery hook, and it shows the example, kind of the same example that we have in our application, and it's showing us how to implement it. You use the useQuery hook, you pass the you use the useQuery hook, you pass your query into it, you check if it's loading, return the loading screen, you check if it has an error, then you return an error, and if there's no error, that means you have the data, and then you do something with the data. And so I'm going to go back to the code to kind of show you that that's exactly what we did here. Like, we have our, let me just turn this off because we don't need it so you can see more of the screen. We did that exactly that. We wrote our query to get our data from our backend. We're using useQuery hook to get the data. We are checking if loading, display loading, if error, show error, and otherwise show the data. So right now we just literally just looping through the projects, and we're seeing, you know, we're just getting the name and the last name of our kind of developers and showing it on the screen. And that's why you're able to see, let me go here, refresh, you're able to see the names of the people, DJ Norris, Paul Bratz, and Luke. And so now let's display the rest of the data. And again, we're not going to worry on the CSS. We just want to get the functionality down because I feel like that's the most important part. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to go ahead and for time being, like, remove this, right? We're gonna remove this, and we're going to do a console log to view what we have in our project. So we map through the project and we're going to console log what we have here. And I have a bracket somewhere where it doesn't belong. It's probably right here. Probably. No. God damn it. Let's see here. Where's the extra bracket? I hate like when you have too many brackets that don't make sense. You know what? Let me start it from the beginning. I'm really up. Let's delete this. So we're gonna have a div. We're going to get our data, which will be data projects, and gonna map through it. And what we're going to have in there, don't forget to put your brackets here. And the first thing we're going to do is just to console log all the items. So we're going to return project, and let's do can't type under pressure. Console.log, and let's check out our project. Let's do this. You know, spelling is important. You guys, I need to learn how to spell. And for now, we're not going to worry about, we need a return statement. We're not going to worry about it right now. So let's go to our React application, click inspect here, console log, and notice we get our projects. Hold on a second, let me refresh. Okay, here we go. So these are the 3 projects we have. So we could expand and look. We have our name is the title. So let's make our name an H1. So let's return here. And we could clear this up. The beauty of all this stuff, right now we're just looking to get the general functionality, make sure that our logic works. And eventually we'll be able to make it all prettier with Bootstrap and stuff like this. But right now I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want to make sure that we're displaying the correct data. And that's the whole point. If you're a web developer, your goal is to make sure that the logic behind that displays the data, handles the state, writes the data to the database works. It's not the looks of it. The looks of it you could always come back and fix. So we know we have project.name, I believe. So that's going to be our, name of the project. Then we have our projects. And again, if you guys always have questions, ask. Like, the point of the stream is, obviously for me to show you how much I suck and for you guys to laugh about it. But at the same time, it's for you guys to be able to ask questions. So notice how we're getting our name and our description. So now we want to get our likes. So it's our like count, right? Control copy. Let's go back. And we could let's do a span. Why not? For our like count. And we're going to do project dot like count. I copied and pasted it because I suck at spelling. So notice now we're getting a like count. So we have 100, 0, 10. Let's kind of do this here. And what's awesome, we're already pulling our data from our API. It's amazing. We're using GraphQL, and this is awesome. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're making progress. What else do we need? We need, looking at our card here, we need to have our avatar. We'll work about the image later. Let's just get the name of our avatar. So that's in projects.developer. So what I'm going to do is kind of console log this to kind of see what we have available here. It's undefined, so it's helps if you spell correctly. Developer. So we have access to the first name and last name. So what we could go ahead is, to make it much easier, we could destructure this, and we could destructure a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna just use this as an example. If you're not sure what destructuring is, it's being able to break out the things inside the object. So project developers has key first name and then key last name, I believe. And what I don't have to now do, I don't have to write project developer first name, project developer last name. I could just do it here. And we're going to put it in a span here for now, and then we could figure out later. Spam is fantastic. And in the span, we are going to create our template string, which is going to be our first name and last name. And of course, like, you got to make sure that you type correctly. Like I got this weird mouse that every time I use it, it does stupid stuff. First name. So let's see if that works. All right, so check this out. We have an error. That's just because I have to refresh. Now, you see here we have an issue. It says each child in a list should have a unique key prop in your client list. And that's basically for React to be able to keep track of all the changes, or which state to update and which state not to update. Whenever you use the map function, you need to go ahead and return a key here. And that's why we have our awesome ID in our project. So we're going to, which is unique, and we're just going to pass the ID here. So now when we go back, that error is gone. It's gone. And now we have a basic, description, name, description, likes, the name of the person. Let's kind of fix this for now. Again, we're not worried about too much styling right now. We'll fix it later. But right now, I just want to make sure I'm getting the stuff that I'm getting. Then we also want to create a like button. And eventually, it'll be like a hearts or or a whatever, thumbs up or whatever you want. Like, let's call it, we'll call it like button. And so we have our button here. And when you click on it, nothing happens. So let's prepare it to be able to have some sort of logic. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a function inside here, and eventually we'll break this up and do stuff. So we're going to create function here, handle like, and then in the future we're going to add some logic that's going to handle this. But for now, we're not going to worry about it. Right? So here we go, and we're gonna just for now console log. One second. Console.log. I got a phone call. It happens. Yeah, let me go ahead and console log. Console log. What are we going to console log here? We're going to console log liked, button clicked. And then we're going to add an on-click event on our button here. And it's going to call this function. So again, we're just kind of going through and adding just the basic stuff, handle like. And then we're going to have a link here, which, see details. But at this point, because we haven't implemented React Router, there's no point of doing it. But we know we're going to have it. But for now, what do we have? We have our application basically pulling the information that we have on our card. And so the basic idea here, like, check this out. We have our basic implementation of our card that we designed. Obviously, it doesn't look pretty, but we are getting the functionality getting closer. And if you go to our React application and Big B 420, I make it look easy. It's still a challenge, but yeah, like guess because I've been working as a developer for 2 years, so I hope that some of this stuff is a little bit easier for me. But by the way, guys, like, ask questions whenever you get stuck. If you guys need help with anything, you could always join our Discord and be part of the community and talk about stuff. Let me just go to our Discord and throw the link here for you guys. So if you guys are interested in joining our Discord, you guys could do it. And I created a separate thread there for Tuesday night stream. So any questions you have based on what we're doing, you guys could go ahead and do that. And again, like, the point of the stream is to kind of give you a live, uncut, more importantly, unprepared version of what it's like to do live coding. And when this is like, if you're going to be coding at home, this is exactly how it's going to be. It's not like elegant, it's not pretty, it's a lot of suffering, it's a lot of like fumbling along like I'm doing here. And the reason why I'm doing these live streams completely unprepared, I don't prepare this stuff ahead of time. Like, I build it with you guys, and so if I make a mistake on this stream and then I have to have a next stream where we talk about fixing it, like, I'm gonna have to go and do that and go through that process. But I think it's a good way for you guys to see the reality of coding and to understand that it's not like perfect like an Instagram model. It's a lot of like trial and error, it's a lot of testing, it's a lot of breaking stuff, and that's why I keep showing you all this stuff. So currently, basically what we did, we were able to kind of get our basic UI going. And when I say basic, it looks ugly as hell, but we're not worried about it being ugly. We're more worried about the functionality. So you have to understand, and this is kind of like our initial thing here. We talked about the relationships that we want to build. We talked about basic steps we need to do to make it all happen. This is going to be our homepage, kind of like the page we're working on. If you want to like or see a detailed or read more about a portfolio, you need to log in. So if you're not logged in, that's where it's going to send you. Once you're logged in, you'll be able to like and you'll be able to leave comments. But for now, we're just going to work on super simple. We're going to kind of take this farther and figure out how can we do something with this like. How do we make it happen? So the first thing we need to do, we need to create a like data object that is going to have a relationship to a user and the portfolio. So when a user likes the portfolio, right, they are able to, like, there's some sort of history of which user liked what, because the point being is, like, you don't want to have the user be able to hit the like button 1,000 times for 1,000 likes. You want the user to not be able to like a liked item. They could either dislike it or like it. Similar like on YouTube, you can't smash the like button 1,000 times. You can only do it once. If you hit it a second time, you will unlike it. So that's the functionality we're working for. And by the way, like, just like on YouTube, right, YouTube saves all the, like, it has all the likes, let's say for my username, and it saves all the videos I ever liked here. So I'm able to see, and all the videos that I ever liked. And that's why we need this relationship. Same thing with a portfolio. Portfolio is going to have the like count, but it's also going to have the relationship of all the users that liked this particular project. So you could always look up, which users liked what portfolio, and we'll be able to get from this data. But we need to create this data, and what's awesome, we don't need to create it from from scratch, because we're using Strapi. So let me go switch screens to go to Strapi here. So we're in Strapi, we have this concept of projects, we have this concept of users. So now we need to make this concept of likes. So let's create our likes data structure here. I don't know why, like, my computer does weird things, so I have to like look over to make sure things don't turn off. So what I'm going to go in Strapi, it's very easy. You get content types builder. We're going to create a new collection type, and we're going to call it like. And it's going to be very simple, right? Continue. And a like will have two relationships. So the first relationship is going to have the user. We could call it user, we could call it author. Let's call it user, why not? So, and user is going to be our user object in our database. So let's rename this back user. And a user has many likes. So we're going to make sure that our user let's see here, or do we want likes belong to many users? What do you guys think? Which relationship do we need? Pop quiz here. So it would be a user has many likes, because you're going to be, as a user, wanting to like more than one thing. So we're going to create that here. And then another one is going to be our relationship with our portfolio. So let's go and call it portfolio. Yeah, my screen is on the left. That's why I keep looking here. And let's see, what do we want to do here? Same thing as before. We want to select our portfolio. I call it project. So yeah, let's keep naming consistent project. And a project has many likes. That means if you have a project, it's not just going to have one like per project. Like there's 20 billion users might like your project. So that's what it is. Let's add and finish. And so that's all we need. We're going to save it. And now we generated a likes data structure. Right now, there is no likes, right? But I'm going to create fake ones. And we're going to do this from the actual click of a button. But for now, I am going to kind of make it from the back end here. So it's not going to make sense. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to be Paul Bratz. And I'm going to like Shopify store portfolio and save. And then I'm going to create another like, just so we have a couple likes. Let's see here. Publish. Don't forget to hit publish. And then so we have one like. Let's create another like. And it's going to be Luke. And he also likes the Shopify store portfolio. Let's save. And so now what we have is we have our likes in our database. And what I want to do for now, and we're going to, because we want this publicly to be available, everything is locked down in Strapi until you give permission. So we go to roles and we see for public, and for public, for likes, we want to be able to get the count. We want to be able to find one or find all. So I'm going to save. So what now this allows us to do is when we go to our trusty GraphQL, I'm able to search likes. So I'm going to query for likes. And again, because we created that data structure in Strapi, Strapi automatically creates all the logic in the back behind the scenes. So notice how we have our likes. It shows like everything that we have access to. And so what I'm going to do is I want to retrieve all the likes, and what I want to get is the user first name that liked it, and then I want to get the project that like belongs to, and we're going to get the name. And so when I click play, we should see 2 likes that we created, and they were created by, did I not publish the other like? Most likely I didn't. Let me go back here. Settings, go to likes. Yeah, in Strapi, you got to remember to hit publish. Well, that one's published, not that one. It's here. So we go here, draft, publish. And notice how our API just automatically updates. So if I refresh and click play, we're getting the 2 likes. So now what I could do is I could query these likes and then do like array.length and get the total likes for that particular portfolio. I could basically query based on the project ID because we have access to that. You see we have project ID here, so I could go ahead and query, get our likes based on the project ID to make this happen, to make this work, right? We could, of course, do this, but we're going to do it in the back end. But here's the problem. The problem with the back end is that, you know, we're able to get the likes. Great. It works. But we want to make sure that we're able to add likes only when we're authenticated. So for now, just for today's lesson, let's go ahead and just write just get the likes for our current projects. And we'll handle that logic with the signing in and authenticated in the next session. But I just want to make sure how we created our likes. And what's awesome, because GraphQL allows you to get the things that you want. So we're already getting projects, we're already getting name, description, we're getting like count. But let's not right now, because like count at the moment is an arbitrary number that we added, and it doesn't take into account the actual likes that we have. So for time being, I'm gonna redo this. I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna just get likes. And what this is going to do is going to return an array of all the likes for those projects. And we don't have to worry about like the user. And we could do like, I just want to do the project for a second here. Let me check something. Actually, we might have to get the likes based on project. Let me see here. We might have to write some code for the backend. Actually, now that I'm thinking out loud here, project ID. Let's see here. Yes, because right now it's currently getting all the likes that belong to all the projects. So what we could go ahead is we could actually do a separate query. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it separately. Eventually we'll put everything together, but for now we're going to get likes. And 1 second here, query get likes by portfolio ID. It's a long name, but it's okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to pass an ID here as a variable. We're going to call it project ID. And project ID, because I already know it, it's ID data type and it's required. So what we want to do is we want to pass our project ID to our likes. And so what I want to know is kind of see, let's go to docs to kind of look if we want to get likes by ID. So I'm assuming we should be able to do where likes, and then oh, we gotta spell likes, and we're gonna test it out. We're gonna test it out to make sure it works. And then we know that we have likes. Likes have project, so we want to go project. And I believe project has an ID, and we want to get it by project ID. And again, if this is confusing, I get it, and it probably will be. And you could always look at the docs here. You could also go on Strappy GraphQL docs, and you could read about it to figure out how this works. This is kind of a similar example where they're using a different field here. But basically, if you're asking me like, Paul, how did you figure this out? Well, it's practice. And more importantly, it's reading the documentation, and more importantly, it's coding live like I'm doing with you guys right now to make sure that I'm actually building stuff from scratch. So that's the whole point for everything we're doing here. So now what I'm going to do is here I'm going to kind of pass a variable that I want, and we want what? That's the wrong box. You need to go query variables. And what I want to do is I want to project ID, and let's see what project IDs we have. We have 2 and 3. So let's use 2 because 2 has all the likes. So now I could pass 2 here, and in theory, if I hit play, notice what happens. I get all the likes. So you have 1 like. Let's put an ID so it's easier to see. And we don't need this additional stuff for now. We could add it later, but basically look, this portfolio has 2 likes, so we're getting those 2 likes. So now what I could do is I could use this query, and instead of writing a separate query, because it's awesome, I could add it here. So get all projects and likes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste it underneath here. I'm going to copy this because this is something we need. And again, this is just, I'm putting two queries together so I don't have to make two separate calls to get the data I want. And if it doesn't make sense, we're going to be working on this project forever. And so you guys will be able to get there and things will eventually make sense. So let's test it. So we need to pass a variable here. What are we passing here? Project ID. And the project ID, I believe, was 2. So now when I hit play, look how awesome it is. And this is something that's impossible to do with REST API. And that's why I kind of want us all to explore GraphQL. So notice what we're getting. Not only are we getting that project, but we're also getting all the likes for that project. So now instead of hard coding them, which eventually will add more logic to handle it in the back end, but I just want to show you from the standpoint of kind of what we're doing using GraphQL. And so now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to our code, and we do need to do a little bit of refactoring, which is perfectly fine. So we don't crash the app, what I'm going to do is remove line count because we're not getting it right now at the query. I'm just going to cancel it like this. We'll come back later. I'm going to replace this with our new query. And now we're wondering, it's like, okay, this is all good, but we're asking for a variable here. How do we pass a variable in a query? Like, how does that work? And so, you know what? You basically go and see if you could find it in documentation. So we go to our here to our docs, Apollo docs, and we look. Let's see, we have use query. Okay, I know that we might be able to pass a variable somehow. I know we could do it. Let's go to the next section, like talks about queries. Okay, it's still the same basic stuff. And again, I'm flying through this. So here we go. You see how you can pass a second object with a variable that you're passing. So let's copy and paste this and we'll make it work for our means. And that's what I'm telling you guys. This is why you guys should be building stuff from scratch. You should plan something and don't jump like from one project to another project. Have one cornerstone project where you could be committed to making stuff work. So now what I'm able to do is I'm able to go here because that's what we saw. And I'm going to add that object. Obviously, this is not going to work because this is not what we want to pass. We want to pass into this the ID of our project. So this creates an interesting problem because we don't have that access to that ID. And this is like what you discover building this stuff. So what we have to do, there's a couple ways of doing it. So for today, we just realized that this way it's not going to work because we need to pass an ID here. Like I could pass it like this, but our ID is coming from here. So a couple of ways to do this is we could get and query the likes in our component. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to kind of go back to our original way. So it's not going to be one big epic query just because we need to have access to an ID here that we don't have. So what we're going to do, we're going to follow kind of similar pattern here. And it's going to be called in each component that needs to get the likes. So what is this component? Use query cannot be called inside a callback. So we have even more issues. So basically what it's saying, you cannot call it in a callback, but you can't call it from a component. So what I'm going to do, let's see here, return cons handle like cons first name project. So let me copy this. Control X. Wait, let me make sure that. So basically, we're going to move this code into a separate component, and then eventually we'll be able to figure this stuff out and break it down. So right now that's empty. So let's go up here. So we have our app component. Underneath here, we're going to make our card component. And obviously, this is not the way of doing this. We're going to refactor it because there's a better way of doing it. I'm just showing you this is how you're going to be discovering stuff and working through stuff, is because one thing will lead to another. So I'm just going to show you a way because this is something you guys are going to think of it. So we're going to call this our card component, right? And in our card component, we're going to return this stuff. And we will have to slightly refactor this. And what I'm going to do is we're going to get project passed here as a prop. Okay, so that fixes that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of returning all the data that we had here, we're going to return our component that we created, card. We still need to have key here, because whenever you map through stuff, you need to have key, and it's going to be project dot key, and then we're going to pass project as props. And we're not going to destructure it because we still need access to the ID here. And so in theory, keep saying in theory, there's something extra here. I think it's, oh, we need the closing doohickey here. Close card. So now we have a card component, and now we're not getting this complaint where useQuery cannot be called from the callback, because we put it in its own component and we're calling it from our component here. And for now, we're not utilizing this data, and we're going to come back to it in a second. But first thing I want to see, make sure that we don't have any break-in changes. So I'm going to refresh this. And great, each child list should have a unique key and prop. Let's kind of come back here. That's in, I thought I added a key and prop. It's in client list, React.js. So client list, okay, here's our client list. Key, oh, this got to be project ID. It's ID that we're passing here. So now everything still works. We don't have an error. Let me look, the few like super hardcore viewers. Oh God, guys, why don't you guys yell at me that I didn't share my screen? In the meantime, I'll do Rob. Man, this is why I enjoy live streams, showing your thinking process while coding. Figuring out in real time is not easy compared to scripted thoughts. Reading documents, all, yeah, 100%. And I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen. I apologize for that, guys. So we looked at the code. I hope you guys saw the code that we did. And let me share the application. I mean, I've been working as a developer 2 years, but it's not easy even for me. And I feel like I'm stumbling through this stuff like crazy. But I do want to show you this so you guys have a more realistic expectation of what it's like. And you make it look easy. I'm focusing on the front end. At the moment, I finally figured out how to properly install round functions and running at latest scope CSS. Bro, nice. Much to learn. I have. Yeah, that we all start here. What I would say, bro, like once you feel comfortable with JavaScript, jump into React. And I'm more than willing to help you guys with React. And then strap your setup. What's cool about this application we're building right now is that you don't have to create this back end. You could literally clone this back end and use it with your front end. This is the beauty of it. But let's kind of come back here before we'll just finish up to get the likes. So now we know that our application works, and let me switch back to code here. And now it's not get project query, right? We want to make sure we pass our likes query. So let's go, and I'm going to just pull it because you saw how we did it in our super awesome uh, super duper awesome GraphQL Playground. Hey, thanks so much, Jose. I'm glad that you guys like it. Like when I started doing this, I did it with the assumption that no one's gonna watch this stream. So I'm super thankful and awesome that some of you guys are getting value out of it and like working through it. So basically what we need to do in the code here now is we need to create a query that we're able to pass into here. And I'm going to kind of write this query here. So we're going to call this query const get likes by project ID. And I will eventually post this on GitHub, guys, so be able to see the code, and pull the code, break the code, do whatever you guys like with the code. And I think it'll be like a great way for you guys to learn. But notice we're following the same kind of structure. We're creating a query. So this is the query that I created earlier that we saw. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here, use query. And then we know that we want to pass, based on reading the documentations here, we want to pass a variable. Was it variable? Look, I forget stuff so easily that I can go back to my Firefox here, look at the document. Yeah, we need to paste an object where we're passing the variables or the ID that we want. So let's go ahead and paste it here before we're replacing it. And I'm gonna take a look in our test. So we need to pass project and then ID. So we're gonna blah 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 and then pass project ID. And the project ID comes because we have access to it here. We're gonna copy and paste here, boom, and now we have project. And so what we want to make sure is that if we receive this data, we want to see it. So let's console log this, and I'm sure some stuff is broken, not even going to be surprised, but let's see if we could see if we're getting any data back. Wow, I'm surprised, nothing's broken. Look on the bottom here, let me switch screens here, refresh this bad boy. No, look at the bottom here, we're getting likes in an array. So we have like 1 and like 2, and we only have 2 likes in the Spotify project. So now we could dynamically add these likes, and because it's an array, we could just do .length to get the likes. And let's go to our code. Let me switch to our code here. Switch to code. So now here where we're pulling likes from our like count, which we will use eventually. So don't let me say that we're not going to use it, but there's a lot more code that we have to write, and it's going to be a lot more code based on if the user is authenticated. But for now, we know that, was it data likes? I think it was likes. And because it's an array, we just want to get the length value. And notice how we have 2 likes, 0 likes, 0 likes. And what's cool, that's being, let me, you like can't see the screen. Let me switch screens here. And let me refresh this. So now you could see that our likes are coming from our backend API. Our like button doesn't work. We kind of hooked up the event, which is going to run the function to make it work, but we still have to write the logic. But for now, at least, our likes are dynamically generated from our database. And granted, we have to add it manually. Let's add some likes here. Let's go to likes. Let's create a new like. Let's like, it'll be Luke, and he likes Luke's portfolio. Let's save. Let's add another like to Luke's portfolio. We have to publish. And eventually all this stuff is going to be automatic once we dive into more of the backend code. But for now, we're just doing this way. Paul Braslavsky also likes Luke's portfolio. So let's add it here and save. And then let's also add another like. God damn it. this publish button. And then let's add another like. DJ Norris also likes Luke's portfolio. Save and publish. And so now we're going to go back to our React application. Notice this Luke's portfolio doesn't have any likes. If I refresh, and look, 3 likes. So the beauty is we're now pulling our likes from our database, which is dynamically generated. So next we have to implement a function that on click is going to check, are we authenticated user? And if we are, it's going to run the function that we kind of made a placeholder there, and it's going to handle the logic to change this to 3 and so on. And obviously if you already liked, it's not going to change it. But for now, we can't do that because we didn't create this concept of the logged in user. We didn't create the authentication yet, and that's something we're going to have to do next time. We're going to create this idea of routes so we could have our home page, our login page, and our details page. Then we're going to work on the login page so we could actually log in as a user and become authenticated. And once we are authenticated, we're going to come back to this logic for this like, and we're going to make it work like what we anticipated. And to kind of sum up, you know, the whole point when you're starting out, like, and I can't say this enough, and I'm going to keep saying it for the rest of my life, because the fact is, if you guys are not coding from scratch and building stuff yourself, you're never going to get this important practice of figuring out. So this is the stuff. If you watch the first 2 streams, you know, we didn't have this basic layout. And so when you're starting a project, the worst thing you could do is start coding right away. It's the wrong way of doing it. The first thing you have to do is to identify the bare minimum functionality your application needs to have to call it version 1. And then you decide how you're going to handle the data in the database, what kind of logic and relationship you have to have. And luckily for Strapi, a lot of that back-end relationship is very easy to set up for us. And eventually, as we build this project in the front end with Strapi, all of you guys get your front end chops up to par. And because we've been working with Strapi, kind of learning how to like wet our feet with back-end development using Strapi, you are going to have a transition to back-end developer much easier. And so the goal for this is to finish this with Strapi, and then after the front end is done with Strapi, everything works, we have every feature that we want, is to take out Strapi and recreate the same thing using Node.js ourselves, which is going to be like a year from now, whatever, I don't care. But the point is, that's going to be a full stack application that we wrote from start to finish. Right now, we're focusing more on the front end and partial back end by relying on Strapi. So the most important thing and the takeaway of the stream is that you guys should never work on anything that you're not planning. And I'm going to make an argument here because I did a half-ass plan, that my half-ass plan is better than no plan. So basically, for the basic functionality of the app, I realized that we need to have 3 pages. We need to have our home page, which is going to display all the cards for all the projects that users have. The basic functionality that we want people to have for this version is to have the like button and to be able to see the detail page. You cannot like or see the detail page unless you're logged in user. And so if you're not logged in, it's going to take you to the login page. You log in, and once you log in, you'll go back to this page and you'll be able to like, because you're authorized, or you'll be able to hit the detail button, which will shoot you to a more detailed view of the portfolio, and which will have the detailed view of the portfolio. We could add some more images. I'll have some of the links to your GitHub, LinkedIn, your live site of the project, your resume. It'll have your avatar image, and then it'll have basic stream of the latest comments that were left in your portfolio that you could comment on. And what'll be cool is, like, if I'm logged in as Paul and I comment here, it's going to show up that Paul commented here. If you log out and you logged in as yourself and you comment here, it's going to say that somebody else commented, like, because it's going to be based off the user that authorized. So that's the goal. But the basic idea, if you don't plan, you're going to be planning to fail. And so I wanted to continue making these live streams. And smash the like button if you did it. I know these are going to be my less watched streams, and I don't care. And all of you guys that are here, like Rob, Jose, Big B420, Luke stopping by, Devmenta stopping by, Hamza, you know, Jordan, all of you guys coming in. Byron jumped in, Endpoint jumped in to say hello. I appreciate you guys a lot. And again, like most people who don't watch streams like this also don't do work like this at home. You need to be coding. Like I can't like say this enough to you guys. I want to show you something, and I showed this last time. Last time for you guys, and like I don't have the paid version for this app. I have a you know, the one that just shows the last 7 days, and it keeps track of your coding. And so recently I had almost 40 hours, but in the last 7 days, because we're coming off a weekend, so this is already Tuesday. It's Tuesday today. Like, check this out, guys. I'm not doing this to kind of say like, check how awesome I am. Like awesome I am, but in the past 2 days I'm like 22 hours of coding, and part of it is for work, part of it is for doing stuff at home. But the point is, if you want to be a developer, you need to be coding stuff from scratch. You need to be coding stuff from scratch, and I cannot say this enough to you guys. And that's the whole point with this stream. By the way, if you not on Discord with us, guys, jump in Discord. I'm going to throw a link. I created a separate thing called Tuesday live stream. All the questions that you have or discussions you want to have about this live stream, just put it there. I'll be able to answer them. Also, for those of you guys who want to get more practice with React, join our Discord. And on Discord, you could PM me, and we could set up some group sessions with other people, throw some times out where we could do some specific React or training or JavaScript training or answering your questions live in the Discord. So definitely join Discord. But with that being said, guys, if you're still here and haven't smashed the like button, I don't know what to tell you, but just go ahead and smash the like button. But otherwise, if you don't have any questions, I'm going to say my good nights, goodbyes. I love all of you guys. You guys are the best, making this community strong. And I appreciate all of you guys who stick for the long duration of the stream. And, you know, please, I keep saying this a lot, is if you have questions, just ask. If something doesn't make sense, just ask. I don't mind going into it in more detail in the stream. That's the whole point and the whole benefit of it. So with that being said, guys, much love to all of you guys. Without you guys, I would not be here. So thanks so much. And I am eventually going to make blog posts that are going to be more condensed in terms of the steps that we took to get to where we are up to like the latest stream. You're also more than welcome to go back, check out the old streams. And I'm also going to make follow-up videos where instead of having something which is like live stream like this, where there's a lot of kind of trial and error, I'm going to make some like, you know, 5-minute videos to kind of just basically talk about kind of what we did in a nutshell, or like edit down some of the stuff to make sure that we get the key points of the things that I want you guys to get out of these live streams. So anyway, guys, thanks so much. Love you all. And with that being said, good night, good day, good evening, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys later. As always, you guys are the best. And that's where I'm going to end.